You know, OU football and NASCAR officiating, they have something in common. They both suck. All right, okay. Some of you are going to understand that joke. I had to make a joke about it, okay? But for those of you who don't know, I was distracted during the race today. I had to do a double TV setup where I watched the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, which ended in a little bit of controversy thanks to NASCAR officiating. And on the other TV, I'm a big Texas Longhorns fan. That is a college football team, an American football team at the collegiate level. And they played their big rival, Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Sooners, and Texas drop-kicked them through a door, took them to the top of the Cotton Bowl, drop-kicked them once again, and then body-slammed them again just for good measure because, well, OU sucks. Anyways, let's move on to the race. It was an ending in controversy in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at the Charlotte Roval. But first, before we get into this recap for SVG, talk about his premature elimination from the NASCAR playoffs, we're going to tell you a little bit about this racetrack. I've told you about it before earlier in the season, told you about it during the playoff preview. The Charlotte Roval, in my opinion, is the most unique track in NASCAR. Now, it fully races like a road course. It's like a typical road course in the setups and whatnot. I'm sure there's small differences for sure because there is banking. They run the majority of the oval. The only thing is that they put some chicanes in there so you don't quite get to use the full oval all at once. It's a 2.28 mile track, which is equivalent to 3.67 kilometers, and there were a lot of changes made to this track. From 2018 to 2023, the Charlotte Roval looked like this. Get yourself a good look at it. Same length racetrack, but they did change a couple of the turns. I showed you the map before. It should have had in the green. I forgot to explain this beforehand, but in the green was the old layout. That's the way they used to go. Well, this year they decided to add another kind of a strip rather than have more curves and then have that heavy braking zone into turn 7. Because of that, it created more passing opportunities, more opportunities at bump and runs, at moving someone, rubbing is racing, that kind of thing. It made more passing opportunities while also making a spot for more opportunities to rough someone up in a sense. We saw Shane Van Gisbergen. He was one of many to take advantage of that area of the racetrack. He was one of many to make many passes, overtakes in that part of the racetrack. As for the other changes to the racetrack this year, they made some slight adjustments to the chicanes, just making them a little bit deeper in order to try to once again, create passing opportunities. There's another unique part of the Charlotte Roval, and that is the turtles. The turtles are in the chicanes, and that is kind of what you bounce off of. Cars get airborne. And the only problem with the turtles is that you hit them, you catch a lot of air, and you land really hard. And in the Cup car, it's created some problems. Busch and Martin Truex Jr. talked about it before the race or before Cup Series practice, so before the Xfinity race, and they talked about how it was almost like getting concussions every time they would land because you hit the curb so hard, and you come back down, and it's a pretty hard hit when you hit those turtles. So basically, they are hard on you physically. They are extremely hard on the car as well. You can take the turtles, but if you take them too hard, it could in the Xfinity cars, it could damage your splitter. It could damage the underbody. You spin out, crash someone else. The turtles can cause a lot of problems. Now that you know about this racetrack, you know that it's a mixture of the infield road course and the oval. You know about the turtles. You know about the chicanes. Let's talk about this race. There was a lot of controversy at the end of this race, and that controversy ended up actually affecting the playoffs. Shane Van Gisbergen ended up getting eliminated by just a couple of points after the winner of the race was Sam Mayer, someone who was below that cutoff line entering this race and was below that cutoff line the majority of the race. SVG started on pole. He led the first few laps before teammate AJ Allmendinger, who has a strong success rate at this racetrack, multiple wins in Xfinity, is the defending Cup Series winner. He took the lead from SVG. Shane Van Gisbergen ended up finishing second in that first stage, so 9 whole stage points. Remember, he entered this race minus 10 to the cutoff line to teammate AJ Allmendinger. He lost a point on Allmendinger, but he gained points on literally every other playoff driver, and that was a big point. Stage 2 happens, but of course, at the end of these stages, a lot of guys pit because there's a guaranteed caution, and it flips the field. The guys who stayed out for stage points, which was a good chunk of the playoff drivers, they restart 15th to 20th or worse. Those guys who pit at the end of the stage with 2 laps to go or earlier, they end up assuming the lead. So Shane Van Gisbergen had a bad pit stop. They were going to come out with Allmendinger around 15th or 16th. They end up restarting 22nd, and that was the first step back on the day. They ended up climbing up to about 15th or 14th with 13 to go in stage number 2, and a caution came out, and it was the first of many in this second stage. SVG ended up making his way up through the field, and then they opted to pit with about 6 laps to go in the stage when a bunch of other cautions came out. And they were able to use those fresh tires. A few guys stayed out. Justin Allgaier, the most notable. He was also below the cutoff line entering this race. He ended up staying out to gain stage points, win stage 2. But Shane Van Gisbergen, him and a bunch of other playoff drivers pitted, flipped the field, and they ended up still getting stage points, but not as many. Shane Van Gisbergen finished 7th, ended up getting 4 stage points. So a grand total of 13 on the day. Now, normally you'd say 13 stage points when you or minus 10, that's great. But once again, it's about what everyone else does. Almost everyone scored stage points today. And yeah, that puts you in contention that you can point your way in. The big problem for SVG is that he was racing Allgaier. And Allgaier was running 15th most of the day. SVG was running top 3. And when that was the case, it was only a 2 or 3 point gap. And the problem with that is every position is 1 spot. So SVG, when he's running 3rd, he can only gain 1 more point if he doesn't win. Allgaier's got 14 possible points. And that's ultimately what was the downfall of SVG. But the literal downfall of SVG was a head scratcher. I'll admit it. Shane Van Gisbergen ran top 3 the majority of this race when given the track position, when given the opportunity, and he was running 2nd. He had made his way back up to 2nd, made his way through the field throughout stage 3. With about 15 to go, there was a caution. And at this point, you are set up with a decision. That decision is you've been on tires for about 15 laps or so. The decision is you give up your track position, but you come into pit road, get fresh tires, and you got to make your way through the field. And late in these races, we see how freaky these races can get, so you could get caught up in a wreck, but realistically, it gives you a better shot at the win, unless, if 10 plus guys stay out, then you've got a big cushion. You just got to run away. The majority of the leaders pitted. Shane Van Gisbergen was the only leader who did not pit, and about 6 or 7 mid-pack guys stayed out with him. That was it. That was Shane Van Gisbergen's playoff hopes over. He led for about 2 laps, but the problem is that out of those guys who pitted, which was Sam Mayer, which was Parker Kligerman, AJ Allmendinger, those guys restarted 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's row 4. Shane Van Gisbergen's a great driver. He's got a car that's capable. But unless you run out to 10-second lead with guys who have fresh tires, it's going to be extremely difficult to hold them off. And when a bunch of these guys who are your buffer are mid-pack guys, there's not a lot of hope left. And that hope left very quickly. Parker Kligerman was up to 2nd in just less than 2 laps, and he was by SVG in 3-4 laps. And you're on older tires. You can't fight back. Once Kligerman got the lead, there was no hope. I will say, Kligerman and Sam Mayer had a nice little battle going there, and they kept on slowing each other up because they were making aggressive moves. They were side by side. And so Allmendinger and SVG were able to catch up, but it was all for naught. And it looked like Parker Kligerman was going to win and advance to the round of 8. And then NASCAR officiating stepped in. For those of you who don't know, I love NASCAR. It's a human error. It's a human thing. We all make mistakes, but it's been all too consistent recently with the DVP policy, with other penalties, and this one was rough. Ultimately, I am in agreement. This was absolutely a caution. Leland Honeyman was deep into the barriers. He was never getting out of there. That's a caution. I 100% agree with it. My question is, why did they wait 20 seconds? That's an estimate. I don't know if that's a hard number. Why did they wait? Let's go optimistic. Why did they wait 10 seconds to call that caution? Leland Honeyman clearly was never getting out of that. The tire barrier was over his entire car. You're not getting out of there. The car is destroyed, and you got a tire barrier on top of you. But no, NASCAR says, let's wait this out. Let's wait till literally the last possible second to throw the yellow. Make this exciting. Parker Kligerman, look at this. This is where he was. That white line you see, that is the start-finish line officially. He was that close to taking the white flag. If he takes the white flag and a caution happens after the white flag, the race is over. Parker Kligerman wins if he gets back to the stripe. Once again, I am in a 100% agreement that that is a caution. I am in 100% disagreement that they waited that long. The official excuse, according to Bob Pockrass, was that they could not see it. They did not have a good viewing on it. That's a bad excuse if you ask me. Why do you not have spotters everywhere, especially at a controlled racetrack? Code is a big racetrack. It's a 3.5-mile racetrack. It's very spread out. Understandable. The Charlotte Roval is inside of a 1.5-mile oval. You should have eyes on everything. That is absurd. If it was a couple seconds, if it was 2 to 3 seconds that they waited to make that call, I would say that's fine. They're waiting to see, analyzing it, and then they say, okay, like he's not getting out, throw the yellow. When you wait more than 10 seconds for something that is clearly not going to clean itself up, it's ridiculous. If it was a single car spin into the grass and he's trying to fire it up, you can see him spinning the tires and, trying to fire it back up half a lap away from the leaders. Okay, you wait a while because it's a single car spin. There's no visible damage and he's not stuck in the wall or stuck somewhere. So why not give him a chance? But when you have a car full car length deep into the barrier with the tires on top of him, how do you not throw that yellow like that? Ultimately, it screwed Parker Kligerman. Once again, it's a tough break for him for sure, but it was a caution at the end of the day. Sam Mayer goes on to win. He advances because a guy below the cutoff line wins. Shane Van Gisbergen misses it by 2 points, I think. Jesse Love pitted there late, but they were able to make up 2 points like that because, frankly, they were with a bunch of back markers and they're a really good car-driver combination. So Shane Van Gisbergen's out of the playoffs. He's still racing these next 4 weeks at Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, and Phoenix. He's got a few more Cup races. Tomorrow he starts on pole, his first career Cup Series pole, and he's got a shot at winning tomorrow. He races in Cup next week at Vegas. He races at Cup at Martinsville. He's still got a lot to drive for. He's still got a lot of learning left to do this year. But as for the Xfinity Series Championship, it's over. Shane Van Gisbergen will not be an Xfinity Series champion in the year 2024. It's an unfortunate ending for him for sure. We looked at this first round. We circled the Charlotte Roval when we looked at Shane Van Gisbergen's possibilities of getting out, and we said a win was possible. He had winning speed today, but ultimately that call there at the end cost him. He finished third, still like a really good day, a really good points day, but the wreck at Talladega, the lack of stage points at Kansas came back to bite him, and ultimately Shane Van Gisbergen eliminated from the playoffs. I don't know why I threw this away. Those remaining in the NASCAR Xfinity Series Playoffs, here's your bracket. Get yourself a good look at it. Justin Allgaier goes back to the points lead after a horrific round one. Cole Custer, Austin Hill, Chandler Smith have the points advantages for now, but 3 races to go. Sam Mayer back-to-back Roval victories. Jesse Love AJ Allmendinger, and Sammy Smith are your bottom 4. Now I can toss the laptop away. We will have the Cup race recap tomorrow. Should be an exciting one. But yeah, cutoff race at the Roval, not great for SVG because, well, he got eliminated. But as for the Cup race tomorrow, he's got a great shot at victory. We'll talk about that race all in all tomorrow. Monday, we'll do the Monday after. Anything else that happens, I will let you know. But thanks for watching this. Been a fun year doing these recaps, but SVG out of the playoffs.